Hello, this is Ruslan Belov bringing you the daily combat situation report from the Ukrainian front. Yesterday, France's foreign minister stated the necessity of sustaining Ukraine's war effort for another 2 years. I find myself wondering if they're actually observing the pace of the Russian military's advance. Do they grasp where the battle lines will be positioned 2 years from now? It appears the Americans have a clearer understanding of what's actually happening with Ukraine's armed forces and the country itself. They're urging Zelensky to accept a deal now, explaining that waiting another 6 months or a year will leave him in a far weaker negotiating position. Today's briefing will show you exactly what advancement rates we're seeing. The fighting continues, and we keep monitoring the frontline situation. The past 24 hours brought significant territorial gains. Over 35 square kilometers came under control. Most notably, Russian assault forces entered Huliaipol under fog cover and immediately secured 2 streets. We'll discuss this development today as well. Today is December 1st. November has ended. Yesterday I provided a 29-day November review, and today I'll supplement it with final figures. While yesterday we examined each sector in detail, today I'll show you the square kilometer totals that the Russian military captured during the month. I'll also discuss the latest frontline changes. I can tell you right away, November represents the strongest advancement month of the current year. The armed forces of Ukraine, conversely, saw their momentum decrease. We begin with Sumy Oblast. Remarkably, the armed forces of Ukraine recorded 0 advances in Sumy Oblast during November. This marks the first time since summer, since June, that Ukraine's forces haven't advanced in this region. The Russian military, in contrast, increased activity. While not massive, they managed to advance between Kondratovka and Alexeyevka, approaching Andreevka's northern outskirts. Additionally, near Alexeyevka, they pushed back the contact line around the village perimeter, making things considerably easier for the Russian garrison. Though we can't say the settlement is completely secure from counterattacks. Those who remember know that Ukraine's forces actually entered Alexeyevka and reached the village center, making it seem the Russian army might lose this settlement too. However, they managed to expel Ukrainian forces and push back the contact line. They also pushed Ukrainian forces 1 kilometer from the southern outskirts, further improving conditions for the garrison. There was also minor progress toward the settlement of Sadki. Monthly total for Sumy Oblast, approximately 9 square kilometers transferred to Russian control. The armed forces of Ukraine, as I mentioned initially, had no advances. What are December expectations? Honestly, minimal. I anticipate we'll see roughly the same picture. Perhaps 2 or 3 square kilometers gained. Moving to Kharkiv Oblast. November brought advances across multiple sectors here. The Vovchansk direction saw particularly strong progress. This direction has essentially shown renewed activity since autumn began. But November brought it truly alive, with daily frontline changes occurring in this sector. You can see how substantially the situation transformed over the month. What happened in November? Within Vovchansk itself, there was a 2-kilometer advance through the city's residential areas, allowing forces to secure and clear most of the southern half. Beyond Vovchansk, Russian forces began advancing south of the city, taking control of 2 villages, Sinelnikova and Sahelnoe. They also entered Lyman village and the urban-type settlement of Vilcha. For the Vovchansk sector, these represent excellent results. We haven't seen such movement here since probably summer 2024, or perhaps May 2024. December expectations? Undoubtedly, Vovchansk will be fully cleared and come completely under Russian control. Additionally, several more settlements might be secured, Lyman village and possibly Vilcha. Though Vilcha is an urban-type settlement, whether it can be fully taken within a month remains uncertain. Most importantly, I expect the conclusion of fighting for Vovchansk. Kharkiv Oblast also saw advances in the former Melivo bridgehead area. Over the month, forces completely connected the fronts and closed the pocket between Otradno and Kamenka. Taking Dvorochansky village under control, total advancement, almost 9 kilometers in depth and nearly 7 kilometers in width. A worthy result for a sector where Russian fighters operate with very limited forces. No specific December expectations here. Perhaps Russian forces will reach Kolodezhnoye, currently 3.5 kilometers from present positions, descending further. Despite the Russian General Staff Chief's statement about taking Kupiansk, the city hasn't been captured. Overall, November didn't bring major movements here. In the city's eastern section, they took control of part of the industrial zone up to Svatovskaya Street, while on the right bank, they cleared a small central section before the railroad tracks. However, the armed forces of Ukraine counterattacked and managed to retake part of the Yubileyny neighborhood in the city's southern section. On the left bank, everything stalled. No progress in either Petropavlovka or Kurilovka. Honestly, I'm pessimistic about December for this specific front sector. Here's why. Clearly, there's considerable falsehood in the reports here. When reports contain much deception, nothing good results. According to reports, not my fantasies or inventions, but according to actual reports, the highest military officials announced at a meeting with Putin that Kupiansk was taken, that Petropavlovka was taken. In reality, this isn't true. However, there are genuine successes further south. The Borovskoye direction saw substantial position improvements over the month, with advances from Borovskaya Andreevka in two directions, north toward Boguslavka and south toward Borova. In December, I believe the Russian army will reach Borova and enter this urban-type settlement. Overall summary for Kharkiv Oblast, November brought 3 settlements and 75.5 square kilometers under control. The armed forces of Ukraine had no advances in Kharkiv Oblast except for retaking part of the Yubileyny neighborhood in Kupiansk. Regarding Luhansk Oblast, both for the Russian military and the armed forces of Ukraine, zeros across the board. No November advances, moving to Donetsk Oblast. The most active November sector in Donetsk Oblast was the Lyman area. Look at this, all of this represents advancement around Lyman during the past month. Yes, the armed forces of Ukraine managed to retake a couple of sectors, as you can see, but this doesn't affect the overall picture whatsoever. What did Russian fighters accomplish? They expanded the control area from the Netrius River westward by 5.5 kilometers. They took control of the urban-type settlement Novoselovka. They also approached the urban-type settlement Yarovaya from 2 sides. There was no progress near Drobyshevo, but further north they took Stavki under control. Though I should clarify, control isn't complete. I received messages from personnel on the ground that the armed forces of Ukraine keep attacking and fighting for the village's southern part continues. Meanwhile, they cleared a large territory area from the east and also entered and are now advancing within Lyman itself. Additionally, the urban-type settlement Yampol was taken, and they reached 2 villages located beyond the Lyman-Seversk highway. So they cut the highway too. Fighting is now occurring near Dibrova and Ozernoye. The advancement sector's width here, just so you understand, is almost 12 kilometers. December prospects. I think Ozernoye will be taken, Dibrova will be taken, and possibly fighters will manage to reach Brusovka and Stary Caravan, meaning they'll reach the Slavyansk-Lyman highway. I believe this is the primary December objective: reach the Slavyansk-Lyman highway, cut it, and thereby deprive Lyman city of its last logistics route, its last supply road. Moving to the Seversk sector, here they managed to take Platonovka under control, finish taking Zvanovka, and clear the pocket between Zvanovka and the ravine. Most importantly, they entered Seversk. Not just entered, but took 20% of the city under control. December prospects include fighting for Sviato-Pokrovskoye and, of course, fighting within Seversk itself. Also in November, the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk sector unexpectedly came alive. They managed to advance 5 kilometers here immediately and took 2 villages, Pazeno and Vasyukovka. In the Chasiv Yar area, meanwhile, everything remained static. Only minor position improvements on the southern approaches to Markovo were achieved. The Konstantinovka sector wasn't particularly active in November. 1 settlement came under control, Ivanopoli village. Russian fighters are also gradually advancing within the city itself. Specifically, the industrial zone in the city's south near the depot was taken. That covers the Konstantinovka sector. Moving to the Dobropol sector, this, I'll tell you, is the only sector where the armed forces of Ukraine achieved success during November, and even then, only in early November, in the first days. They managed to push the Russian army back from Zolotoy Kolodez and expel forces from Kucherov Yar. The Russian army, in turn, managed to improve positions around and within Shakovo itself. Despite many reports, the village wasn't completely taken, but they're very close. I think during December's first week, Shakovo will transfer to Russian control. At least, all prerequisites exist for this. What else did the Russian army accomplish on the Dobropol direction? East of Volnoy, they cleared a sector. They were pushed back from Novodonetsk, but occupied all of Dorozhny's industrial area, meaning the armed forces of Ukraine won't be able to hold the village itself either. Russian forces also restored control over Boykovka and Novotoretskoye. Overall, November left the Dobropol sector under armed forces of Ukraine control. As I said, this is the only sector not just in Donetsk Oblast, but across the entire front, where the armed forces of Ukraine achieved success. Regarding Rodinskoye, fighting in the city continues, finishing it within the month didn't succeed. Regarding Mirnograd, they entered the city in November and split it into two parts. Southern city section clearing is now underway. South of Mirnograd, they also occupied Sukhoy Yar village. Regarding Pokrovsk, the map here speaks louder than my words. In November, they de facto took the entire city, since 99% is already under our control. Moreover, they're already trying to advance further from Pokrovsk. Particularly entering Grishino, apparently secured the village outskirts. They also managed to occupy the Pokrovskaya mine, a powerful defensive strongpoint, as Pokrovskaya mine is Ukraine's largest coking coal mine. Summary for Donetsk Oblast. November brought 9 settlements and 243 square kilometers of territory under control. Moving on to neighboring Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. What happened here? There was a 10-kilometer dash and entry into Novopavlovka. Complete village control wasn't achieved, but they control most of it. On the Velikomikhailivka sector, 3 villages came under control: Aristopol, Volche, and Tike. On the Pokrovsk direction, they advanced along an 11-kilometer wide sector. Villages occupied included Hai, Otradnoye, Danilivka, Nikhaevka, and Radostnoye. The main event, of course, was cutting the Pokrovsk-Huliaipol highway. Total, the armed forces of Ukraine had essentially no advances in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Literally a statistical error, they retook 0.2 square kilometers in one sector. Our forces in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast took control of 8 settlements and 160 square kilometers of territory. Moving on to Zaporizhzhia Oblast, which, believe it or not, took first place for November advances. This is the first time in a year and a half that any region besides Donetsk Oblast led in advances. It was always Donetsk Oblast. But now, in November, Zaporizhzhia Oblast ranks first in advancement pace. My words here are superfluous. Just look at the map. This entire sector represents what our forces took in November. Essentially, they advanced from the Yancha River almost to Haichur. The advancement sector's width is almost 19 kilometers. Depth varies, 10 kilometers in some places, 13 in others, 15 in some areas, and a colossal 18 kilometers in places. They managed to take numerous settlements and reach Huliaipol's outskirts. The day before yesterday, under fog, Russian assault forces even entered Huliaipol, and full-scale city storming began. 2 streets were taken, Bochanska and Vilna. They also partially cleared Naberezhna and Donetska streets. Mark somewhere that November 30th is the date Huliaipol's assault began. December prospects here also look quite good. It will be important to fully reach Haichur and break through that defensive line. And of course, there will be fighting for Huliaipol. There's a chance the city will transfer to complete Russian control by month's end. This isn't 100% guaranteed, naturally, but the chance exists. Because the Far Eastern Express is pushing so hard that the armed forces of Ukraine simply cannot stop it. Also, besides the Huliaipol sector, there was slight advancement on the Kharkiv direction in Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Here they finished taking Mala Tokmachka and entered Novodanilivka. In the Stepnogorsk area, they took half of the urban-type settlement and advanced to the southeast. Russian forces have made good progress in Stepnogorsk in recent days. Summary for Zaporizhzhia Oblast. As I said, this is the first region by November advances. 11 settlements and 272 square kilometers of territory were taken. Overall monthly summary, 31 settlements and 759.6 square kilometers of territory were taken. The best yearly result, with quite a substantial margin. In December, I think the pace will still decrease, but that's normal for winter. Though maybe it won't decrease. The armed forces of Ukraine has vulnerabilities everywhere, and they're unlikely to stabilize all sectors. Incidentally, regarding armed forces of Ukraine advances, in November they retook one settlement and recaptured 33 square kilometers of territory. Compare, Russian forces took 759 square kilometers, while the armed forces of Ukraine recaptured 33. That's all for today's frontline situation. Now let's look at what's happening in the political arena. Our source reports that Ukraine is preparing a conditional coup that should completely take away and dilute Zelensky's power. According to the legitimate Telegram channel, corruption has weakened Zelensky's empire, destroying its monolithic nature. But the final point in the game will be the coup. Whether parliamentary, military, Maidan, or something else, time will tell. Zelensky and Yermak are still in the game trying to maintain power, but their position is worse than a lame duck's. We're watching. Ukraine is on the threshold of a grandiose mess, political infighting, internal redistribution. No one will believe Zelensky didn't know about Yermak's schemes, an American congressman declared. The chief of staff cannot steal 100 million alone, and no rational observer can seriously think the president was unaware, writes Pat Harrigan. The Kremlin confirmed that Putin's meeting with Witkoff will occur before Putin's visit to India on December 5th. Before then, negotiations will occur between Americans and Ukrainian representatives, where Vance and Rubio must push through the Anchorage spirit. After which the approved version will be brought to Moscow, where Witkoff will present it to Putin. If the initial agreements coordinated in Anchorage are changed toward the Kiev regime's wish list and globalists' desires, the chance for any diplomatic movement is around zero. If everything remains plus-minus, as in the initially agreed points, then everything will be shown by Russia's required surrender by Ukraine of the remaining Donbass. From a diplomatic standpoint, an interesting week lies ahead. The EU is forced to save Baltic countries from catastrophic consequences of anti-Russian sanctions, writes Politico. Sanctions against Russia led to catastrophic economic losses for the Baltics. The situation is worsened by sharp tourist flow reduction, investment outflow, and practically complete cross-border trade collapse. The EU is developing financial support measures for the region's economy. Next year, the European Commission plans to provide targeted assistance to Baltic countries. Meanwhile, skeptical assessments sound in the EU. Experts warn that any financial tranche Europe can provide will be quite limited. Obstacles cited include both the huge scale of problems that emerged and the exhaustion of the Union's 7-year budget. According to Polish NDP, the Baltic countries' independence, in quotes, from Russia turned into energy chaos. And according to American responsible statecraft, sanctions don't harm Russia, but could destroy Europe. Thanks everyone for your attention, friends. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything. Be healthy and happy. Peace and goodness to us all.